Is August the 1st, 2020, the day that Carnival cruises will resume? Well, I thought it might be, but now I'm not so sure. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Lido Loca. My name's Tony. I'm your host today. Please consider subscribing if you enjoy that travel and cruise content. Hit the notification bell. That way you don't miss out on any of our episodes. Well, before I get into the cruise news update, thank you guys so much for all of your great feedback on yesterday's episode. I'm taking it all in. There's a lot there. And yes, you will see a different form of these videos coming very soon. And I will be using a lot of your inputs. Thank you guys so much. That's what I so much appreciate about the community and about you guys is that I ask the question, you lay it out there, and it's very helpful. So a big thank you from me to you. Well, back, I don't know, early May, I put out a video that said I did think that Carnival could be cruising again August the 1st, and I based that off of a cancellation update that came out from Carnival Corporation that talked about some cruises that would be canceled all the way through August into September, but it highlighted a few cruise ships, 8 cruise ships and 3 cruise ports where cruising could resume in August, and I guess I mistakenly said that this was Carnival's plan. But now there has been some clarification. In an exclusive interview with Cruise Critic, Carnival Corporation CEO Arnold Donald said, yeah, we didn't mean that cruising would resume August the 1st. We just meant that it could resume August the 1st. Like, we still don't know. Basically, that's what he said. And the other thing that he said was that it was an insightful mistake. They recognized that when they published this cancellation information that many people mistakenly latched onto the idea in the media, consumers, many people mistakenly latched onto the idea that that meant that Carnival Cruises would resume August the 1st. But the cool thing was, since everybody made that mistake, bookings were up. People were exciting. It exposed a pent-up desire to go on a cruise. And so the misinterpretation of that announcement made people book a lot of cruises on Carnival, and that was a good thing. CEO Arnold Donald said, yes, while many people jumped to the wrong conclusion, it was good because we understand now that people want to go cruising. The big secret was unraveled that people wanted to go cruising. But all that aside, I guess the big takeaway today is that cruising may not resume August the 1st for Carnival Cruises, or it may. The article is really good on Cruise Critic. I will leave a link in the description. They talk about many things. Some of the big takeaways that Mr. Donald is talking about is that, of course, the resuming of cruising hinges greatly on the scientific experts and the organizations that control the policies, not only in the United States, but around the globe, pointing out that Carnival is a global cruising company. And so they will have to wait. He mentions very insightfully, I'll use his word, he mentions very insightfully that what we've known about the pandemic, what we've known about the virus has evolved and changed over time. What was true in the beginning is not necessarily true today. And as that evolution of information and understanding continues to go forward, that will also cause how the resuming of cruising goes forward. Again, leveraging heavy on the bodies that are helping work with the cruise line, the World Health Organization, the CDC, port officials, government officials, where cruises go. All of these organizations will play a role in determining when cruising can resume. Again, the big takeaway is cruising will resume when social gathering is again accepted. This is what Mr. Donald said over and over, and he said we'll know a lot more in the next 6 to 8 weeks. Of course, if we go 6 to 8 weeks, we're running right up into that August 1st date, and so I completely understand the clarification that maybe cruising won't resume August the 1st. I feel like pretty quickly you could have known that people had misinterpreted that message, but yeah, we're about, I don't know, that was on the 4th of May, and now we're a month later. But the clarification is good. That should cool everybody's jets. And hopefully it doesn't cool the bookings, because I've said it many times, we want this cruise life to resume, and that means people got to continue to believe, continue to invest with their bookings and their reservations in that cruise life, and I'm all for that. Another interesting question that was asked of Mr. Donald in that interview was, would you consider focusing heavily on Carnival's private islands when cruising resumes? And he said that he really wanted to work with the ports that they go to consistently. He pointed out that, yeah, you could go to the private islands, but the cruising experience is all about going and experiencing new places. That he would rather work with the travel partners in those destination ports to make sure that Carnival cruise ships could go there, instead of just trying to leverage the private islands. That really the return to cruising would involve going to places that cruisers want to go to, going to destinations in the Caribbean islands and around the world, not just leveraging the private island. So it's an interesting tactic. It's an interesting thought process. And I know a lot of people would be happy to go to a private island, but I do like the idea that there is an emphasis on taking cruising back to what we know it to be, jumping on a cruise ship and going to a foreign land. Everybody has the same question: when will cruising resume, and how will passengers be kept safe going forward? Those are the big questions that there doesn't seem to be any clear answers for, and so the speculation continues. And as we move forward, I'm assuming that we will get that clarity of information. Interesting story. What do you think? Leave a comment below. Did you think that the initial announcement meant that we would be cruising again in August? I guess we're glad to have the clarity. I do have one more news story for you today. It is about getting into Alaska. Currently, if you are going to go to Alaska, you get there, you have to quarantine for 14 days. Well, now they have a new policy in place that says if you go to Alaska, you have to present them with a negative test, negative for the virus. This test has to be taken 72 hours or fewer prior to entering into Alaska, and it has to be one of those nasal swab tests where they stick the big Q-tip up your nose. You have to have that if you want to go to Alaska. Now, this is for airports. They're going to be setting up screening areas at airports, validating that people flying into Alaska will be testing negative. Of course, there's no cruising to Alaska right now, so the ports are unaffected as people are not going in and out of the ports. But this is significantly the first state that is requiring some sort of documentation to get in and out of the state, trying to do away with the requiring people to quarantine when they get there. But if you can just show up and prove that you don't have the virus, or at least you haven't had it in the last 72 hours, then you can go to Alaska. I don't know if this is going to be the new precedent that you have to carry around some sort of documentation about your virus status, but it's a challenging precedent. All of a sudden, everybody's got to figure out how to get tested, and they got to figure out what documentation to carry. It's going to make travel a little harder. But the first state trying to protect its borders, trying to protect its citizens, stopping people at the airport. And honestly, the airport, a huge vector of infection. A lot of people try to lay it off on the cruise ships, but at least in the United States, up in New York, the virus came in by aeroplane to many of the major airports up there, and you saw what happened in New York. And so Alaska focusing on airports right now, focusing on passengers flying in, and requiring them to have a negative test result before they can enjoy Alaska. So what do you think about having to have documentation to get off a plane in Alaska proving that you don't have the virus? Is this going to be the new normal? I know not everybody loves that term, but is part of the way life will be going forward, carrying around a card that says you don't have the virus? What do you think about that? Are you ready to get tested? Would you tote a card around just so you could travel? Leave a comment below. And let me just close out this video with an apology to Carnival cruisers. Last week I went through a series of videos where I gave 5 reasons for something and 5 reasons against something, just a little compare and contrast, and a lot of people latched onto my 5 reasons not to cruise on Carnival. Those are just reasons that I've heard, reasons that people have expressed before, and a lot of people connected with those reasons, but then a lot of people were just upset. They said mean things things. Like, they took it so personally. And so I just want to take a moment to apologize. I wasn't calling anybody's baby ugly. I respect the fact that people love to cruise on Carnival, and just because I'm able to point out some things that I think could be a challenge doesn't mean I don't love cruising on Carnival. Look, I don't mean to soapbox it here, but I think if you look at the macro world that we live in, one of the challenges that we have is that instead of listening to what other people say, taking it in and saying, oh, I respect the fact that we have a difference of opinion, let's find some common ground, we just want to get upset. We just want to say, oh, why are you talking about my thing? Your thing's horrible. You're stupid. You don't. The problem for us is that's the way we default a lot of the times. And I would just challenge anybody that cares to listen that maybe that's not the correct approach. And maybe some of the challenges that we have is because we're quick to argue and slow to listen and take it for what it is. So that would be my appeal. I offer peace and love, and I'm not calling your baby ugly. I promise. I love Carnival as much as the next person. Just watch the next video about why I love Carnival. But with all that in mind, another interesting set of videos from that series, 5 reasons not to cruise in 2020 and 5 reasons to cruise in 2020. Those are the videos right here. I recommend you checking those out. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Show your support for the channel by hitting the like button. I'm Tony for Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.